Jonathan Lee Riches investigates, covering the Moscow, Idaho Bryan Kohberger case. Bryan Kohberger used to be a fish cutter. He used to work as a fish cutter years and years ago, one of his first jobs. And his boss actually spoke about Bryan Kohberger. His boss, Charles Conklin, he actually spoke out. And I want to share with you what his boss had to say. Check it out.
We've had hundreds of kids come through here and mentored them, and they've gone on to do wonderful things. Pharmacists and teachers, and have their own electrical companies, and almost everything you could imagine. We're so proud of all those kids, and for us to be painted in some kind of light along with this terrible tragedy is very disturbing. And the truth of the matter is, he's here a very short time, 12 years ago, young kid, did our best to mentor him, and mutually decided the job wasn't for him. That was all there is to the story.
And Charlie Conklin, owner of the Big Brown Fish and Pay Lakes, the store where Bryan worked. First, I appreciate you coming on, Mr. Brown. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's Mr. Conklin, but thank you.
Mr. Conklin, sorry. Brown Fish, Conklin.
Yeah.
What do you want us to know about this kid that you remember? He was a kid then. He's in his late 20s now, obviously. But what did you teach him how to do, and what did you learn about him?
Well, first of all, our records show he was in our employment for 4 months, but he probably only worked about 20 days for us. And as far as filleting fish, he never got proficient at it. So we bring kids in and train them, and until they're good enough, we don't allow them to do customers' fish. So he probably only practiced filleting maybe 8 to 10 days out of those 20 days. Another part of their job is to be friendly to customers, to help people fish, to pick up paper and stay busy. This probably was his first job because he was only, I think, 16 at the time. So after he was here several times, it became obvious to me that this job just wasn't for him. He wasn't able to make eye contact with customers and be friendly to them. And he never got good enough for us to allow him to fillet customers' fish. So I talked to his direct supervisor, who already was on board and saw the situation. He talked to Bryan, and really mutually they decided that job was not for him. So that's
common experience.
Contact.
Common experience for him, by the way. He moved through a lot of jobs early on. It happens, but the reasons here remain somewhat of a mystery. So
his boss trained him to learn how to cut fish. With Bryan, if he did this crime, this Moscow, Idaho crime, which I believe he did, the stabbings, the 4 college students who were brutally stabbed, do you think Bryan Kohberger learned or had an obsession with knives going back to his early days in Pennsylvania when he worked as a fish cutter? That's a very interesting question, because a lot of times the FBI and law enforcement, when they catch a suspect, they profile them and they understand their history. They want to get into the mindset of their occupation and careers and trades that they learned in the past that could have carried on with them later on in life. The boss said Bryan Kohberger was a fish cutter. You work with knives. You think it had any bearing with this case whatsoever? But it's also good to hear from Bryan Kohberger's former employees to kind of paint a picture of who this guy is. And Charles Conklin said, more or less, he's not responsible for what he did there. He's saying that other people that he trained went on to work legit good careers, So, and there's a truth to that. We can't say, hey, this Charles Conklin guy is to blame in any way for what Bryan Kohberger does just because he trained him to cut fish way back and Bryan Kohberger used a knife in the Moscow, Idaho case. But I put a report about this fish cutting in the past, but I wanted to share the boss, his own words out of his own mouth. He spoke to Fox News and he also spoke to News Nation. Those are the clips I shared of Charles Conklin. Bryan Kohberger arrested, used a knife, allegedly, in this crime. A knife was used, the sheath You know, you have experience cutting, using knives, cutting. I'm just saying. Subscribe to my channel, like, hit the notification button. Let me know what you think. I am covering this case at all angles. I'm about to go out and go fishing. Talking about cutting fish reminds me to go out and go fishing. And when I fish to collect food. I don't like fishing for sports. I don't think that's cool just to, you know, catch a fish in that sort of sense. Eat it. That's what they're made for, right? Fish is great. Love fish. Great iron, great protein, mercury. It's good for you, good for your system. And it's beautiful in Florida. We are the home of the tarpons. Tarpons in the west coast of Florida. We'll talk soon. Everyone be safe. Justice for the victims and their families. God bless.